keep after it. Don't abandon it when you get stuck or frustrated, but just get into the habit of it. Stay after it. Don't stop. And when you get it done, set it aside for a while. Come back to it. Don't just like drop the first thing you write on Amazon. Go rewrite it and then rewrite it and rewrite it some more and polish it and make sure it's good. And then make sure and get yourself a legit editor and a legit cover artist.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a show about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I'm your host, Michael Vadney, and today I am sitting with Daniel Meyer, SPIFBO 9 semifinalist and author of the Sam Adams series. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. I always enjoy talking about my books, and I appreciate you getting me onto your schedule and putting me on your channel.
Hey, I'm glad you can make it. The audience doesn't know, but this has been an absolute saga to get this episode going. So I'm so glad we could finally.
Yeah, I know. I think this is our third attempt to get it going here. We had
technical difficulties are real, people. That's all we're saying.
Oh yeah, I know.
But today we're going to be talking about yourself, your author journey, kind of just shooting the shit and whatever we feel like talking about. But next week we're going to have you back on the show, and we're going to be going over the intersection of history and fantasy. So, folks, check out this episode, check out next week's episode. We're about to have a good time. You all set to get started, Daniel?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Awesome. In that case, let's start off right off the bat. Could you give us just a quick little blurb? Who are you? And tell us about your books.
Well, my name is Daniel Meyer, like we teed up at the beginning there. I'm from Missouri, USA, and I'm a fantasy writer. I've written the Sam Adams series. Book 1, Credible Threats, that was a SPIFBO 9 semifinalist. Book 2, Rising Shadows, and Book 3, Mysterious Ways, are all out now. Mysterious Ways came out at the end of last year. And I'm writing Book 4, Death Follows, right now. Not making a lot of progress right now, but it is on there. It's on the old computer there. And yeah, it's about the adventures and misadventures of teenage wizard Sam Adams. And when we meet Sam at the beginning of the story, he's 16 years old. He hasn't had to put his magic to the test yet, but of course, starting in chapter 1 and throughout the series, he will.
That's what we have to do to these characters. We got to put them through the ringer.
Just getting keep into beating them down,
Exactly. So getting into our first question, what sparked your passion for writing? What initially got you onto this path?
Well, I really just had so many ideas that I wanted to see the light of day. I always had a lot of ideas for stories, for books and movies and things like that. And finally, I can't remember exactly how old I was now. I was in my 20s, and I just had more and more all the time. And there was this one in particular that I want to write soon as well. It was for an epic fantasy. It actually wasn't for Sam Adams. And I thought, you know what? I've thought about this so much. I want to see if I can make it a reality and get it to see the light of day. And so I just charged to my keyboard one afternoon and just started typing and getting all those ideas down. And then I landed on Sam Adams finally to really get serious about it. And somehow I stuck with it. And the more I kept at it, the more I wrote, the more I wanted to write. So that's how I managed to stick with it.
I love that it was just kind of this self-generating motivation that you got going on. That's amazing, man. That's really cool.
Thanks.
So why did you end up writing the Sam Adams series then? Because you said you started off with the idea of this epic fantasy that you might get to at some point, but what was it about Sam Adams that really made it, this is the story, I'm going to take the distance?
Well, it was really kind of just pragmatic. Like I said, I wrote down a bunch of ideas on the big Microsoft disorganized thing in Microsoft Word. And there was a few, one of them I put down, a while ago I was rereading through my notes for some reason, and I actually came across the initial little idea I wrote down, which was, it just said wizard in high school. And I kind of combined that with one or two other similar ideas. And really it was just, like I said, it was kind of pragmatic, because I remember something George R.R. Martin said, where he said, don't start out writing the big epic fantasy right away. started out with something a little smaller scale. And so I thought, oh, that makes sense. I'll try to do that. And I kind of thought about the things that were smaller scale, and just the one with the teenage wizard was the one that I felt like I could really get into, and I felt like it was the one that I felt confident enough about, like what need that I could start. I should start with that one.
I feel that like into my bones, actually. The story that I'm nearing completion on at the moment is not the story I initially wanted to write, but I was like, I'm a baby author. I don't have the skills to do this yet. I need to cut my teeth on something else first.
Yeah.
So,
It was the same way for me.
oh, go ahead.
You know, the ideas I had for my epic fantasy were not nearly as good as the ones I've came up with, you know, since I got more experience and everything. It wouldn't have been, even if I managed to complete it, it wouldn't have been nearly as good as if I'd waited, you know, till I knew what I was doing better. So I think that really worked.
Yeah, I don't mean to toot our own horns here, but we're really intelligent guys deciding to take an easier path than before taking on this epic.
I think we were onto something. I guess we knew what we were doing. I don't know.
Great minds think alike. So
Thinking alike.
exactly. So at what point in your writing career did you begin to feel like you were an author? For a lot of people, there is that transitionary moment of like, I'm a writer. When was it, I am an author?
Oh, wow. I don't know there was a particular moment. It's just kind of when I published my first book, and like, you know, it's on, I realized it's available, it's on Amazon, all this stuff. And I think I've kind of done this with, you know, the subsequent two books as well, where it's just a little surreal, like every time I come out with one. But you know, it's on Amazon, and like people can buy, and like then some people did buy it, and it's just all this stuff that I'd just been in my computer, in my little writing pit here, and suddenly it's out there in the world for people to see and read and everything. It was just very surreal when that happened, I think.
That's going to be a spectacular moment for most people, I believe. So it makes sense. I love asking that question because for every person, that moment is different. I've talked to some people who have completed like 9-book series, and they're still be like, I'm still not an author. And I'm like, what are you doing? You are totally an author. But it's different for every person.
Yeah. And what I noticed is that I thought, you know, when it comes out, it would be like, you know, you win at WrestleMania and like you lift the belt and the fireworks go off. It wasn't like that at all. It was because you do so much of the like work and struggle you do first, and then when it comes out, like it just kind of, you know, there's no fanfare. It's just one day it's not there and the next day it's there. And so it wasn't immediate. It was just kind of just, you know, looking at it and having it sink in that, you know, that this is now real somehow. So that's what it's like for me.
Yeah, it almost feels like there should be some kind of authority or committee that comes down from on high and goes, here, you are now an author. Here is your badge. But it's not what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you approach developing your initial concepts for stories? When you were coming up with the Sam Adams series, what was the initial spark that really got you there?
Well, really, it's a lot of trial and error, which is really frustrating because, you know, I mean, just kind of obviously you have to just go over it and over it and just flesh everything out and make everything click. With Incredible Threats, the first two drafts were very, very different, and they weren't as good for various reasons. And I was never satisfied. There were things that I liked and I kept from both of those drafts, like the middle, like 3-4 chapters. I can't remember, but there is one section that stayed the same the whole time, but just the story around it has changed a lot. And there were three things. Like, for one thing, he had kind of different powers and different backstory in the first two drafts. In the third draft, I just chucked all that out, and I just went with my first instinct and made him a wizard. That's what I wanted to do to begin with. The other stuff was more complicated. That just boiled it down to the simplest. The second thing, I came up with the character of Abby, his unrequited first love, who dies before the story begins, and when we meet him, he's still reeling from it and trying to get on with his life, and it gives it, somebody else called it an emotional through line. And whereas beforehand, I mean, it wasn't, it made it a little more like personal and everything. He's not just kind of going about his wizard business. There's more going on for him personally. And then the third thing I think helped the most, I threw out the kind of main plots, and I came up with what I tried before, and I came up with something new, which was the concept of hex, which is magical drugs that give humans magical powers, and he has to get to the bottom of this, and that was so much more interesting, I think, than what I came up with beforehand. So all that came together, and then I finally got a version of the book that I was happy with. I just had to keep revising it to make it better.
That makes a lot of sense. I definitely feel you on the emotional through line. You need all of these subplots within a story to kind of like enrich it.
Sure.
Because if it's just
I
a main plot going over the whole thing, I don't know why that just feels so flat to us to have a single thing happening the whole time. You need like multiple through lines.
Yeah, I think that works better for like a novella or something, but a full-length novel, because the first draft, I thought I was going to write a full-length novel. Well, I wrote everything that I had in my head, and it was 30,000 words. And I was like, well, this is not going to work. We have to go back to the drawing board. So I had to come up with some new material to throw in there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And what you were saying earlier about how much your story has changed throughout every draft, like I don't think I could recognize stories that I wrote at first or second draft to what they become at the end. And every writer understands just how wildly they change.
Yeah, for sure. I think everything I've written has ended up being quite a bit different than the way I first kind of envisioned it. So
that makes sense. Speaking of revisions and changing throughout drafts, how do you create your characters? How have they changed over time as you write your various drafts?
Oh, it depends. Sam Adams comes, very naturally to me. I tried to make sure and avoid making him like a self-insert, because, it's just kind of, it can kind of verge into strange behavior when the author writes that kind of character. But people can assume that you're doing that when you're writing in the first person, even if you don't intend to. So it can kind of come off that way. But the other side of that, Sam Adams, his narrative voice kind of comes very naturally to me. Like that's kind of when I just kind of sit down and write whatever comes to mind. That's what comes out. And with other characters, it kind of depends. Like the character of Rodriguez, I needed a Jim Gordon type character on the police force to help him. So that's where Rodriguez comes from. The vampire assassin Elise, she basically, at one point, she was basically just Catherine Pierce from the Vampire Diaries, and she kind of became her own woman. And that's something else that you said, how did they change? At one point, she was going to be a love interest for Sam, which because she was kind of inspired by a character that from a different story that I never even really wanted to write, but I kind of migrated her over there. And that I set that aside because I became more kind of intrigued by the character of Alexandra Tyler, who's an heiress, who's kind of has some secrets that he's going to get involved with. And she was just going to be a minor character, but I just became increasingly interested in her and what she was doing and her experience and everything. And so then she moved to the forefront a lot more. There's a character named Ireson, and at one point he was just going to be just purely a villain, but that was way back in that first draft where I changed things. And even back then, I realized I liked him too much to make him a villain, so I basically just kind of gave him a personality transplant, like right before the end of that book. And then, so now he's a more ambiguous character. We don't know exactly what he wants and what his intentions are for Sam. It's more of a mystery as to whether he will prove to be a hero or a villain.
I think people really can sink their teeth into characters like that too.
Oh,
there's
yeah,
this
for sure.
show that I've been really into called Has Been Hotel, and then there's a character named Alistor in it, and I'm just like, oh yes, are you good? Are you bad? I don't know, but I want to find out.
people seem like they really respond to those characters. So I'm glad that I have a couple of them in there in the Sam Adams books.
There you go. And I hear what you're saying about being worried about like the self-insert character too, because one, that is something to definitely be avoided. But two, on the other hand, every character that you put into the book has a little piece of
Yeah.
you because you created it.
Oh
So you
yeah.
pull from your
I,
experiences and your observations.
yeah, I think that's right. I thought of that as well. That they're in some ways, I guess you could say they're all self inserts, kind of, in an indirect sort of way.
So
So.
how has your writing process really evolved over time then? And what factors have really influenced that growth?
Well, one thing is I've noticed this trying to write. It's not good because I feel like I'm going backwards. I back in the day I could basically write a whole draft, and it wouldn't always be long enough or even like that good necessarily. But I was easier to get to the end. But more recently, like I do what I really didn't like to do when I first started out, and I kind of skip around and write a scene, and then I get stuck and I don't, so I skip that part and try to write something else and just piece it together more rather than just starting from scratch every time. And I don't know why that is. I don't know that means I'm getting better or I'm getting worse or what. But I wish I had a little bit more of the stick to itiveness that I kind of had when I was writing Trump novels and stuff, and I could just somehow come up with something to get me to the end, even if it wasn't always that good. And the other thing I think is working with my editor, Sarah Chorn. She helped me a lot to get the books to where it needed to be. They would not be anywhere near as good without her. And it helped me like just to learn to work from her revisions. Like when she makes a note about something, to like think how I could incorporate that, or how to work something in, and little things like that. Or on the other hand, do kind of what you're not supposed to do when you're working with the editor, and like not take their advice and look at it and think, well, I actually kind of like that way. I have it better because I just kind of can see what I wanted to go for. I don't do that very much. I try to stay humble enough to make sure when I don't take her advice, it's usually on a little minor thing. But, or even when I'm just writing before it even gets to her, sometimes I'll think, oh, I can just hear what Sarah would say about this. And so so I almost try to anticipate it somehow and like kind of fix the problem before it even gets to her. So I think that it's those two things that kind of jump out at me off the top of my head.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And going with your editor, you should listen to your editor 99% of the time.
Yes, absolutely.
They generally know what they're talking about. But you're the author. You have the vision.
Writers, all you aspiring authors out there, please listen to your editor. They put those things in your manuscript for a reason. If I had to go back and do it all over again, I would probably take even more of her advice than I did, like with the first book.
So I got to ask you, since we're talking about process, then I have to ask the age-old question then. Do you tend to plot your stories, or do you pants your stories, or is it a blend somewhere in between?
Well, I guess it's a blend. I try to plot my stories. I want to plot my stories. I can't really write if I don't have an idea going into it, what needs to happen. I can't just make things up on the fly. I tried to do that once, and I got like 8,000 words and then just hit a wall. So I never tried that again. But but it's too, my outlines are too sparse. Like it'll just say, like Sam gets information, and then there is a battle here, and then aftermath of battle, and it doesn't break it all down. So I have to discover a lot of stuff on the way, and I wish I could just have more of a brainstorm going into it, and not have to just kind of bang my head against the wall trying to come up with stuff on the fly. But I mean, I guess it's worked so far. But that's kind of how it goes so far.
No worries. I definitely understand that. I need at least some signposting. I am a plotter. I like to plot a lot. I do discovery write a little bit, but if you don't plot at all, it feels like you got just dropped into a field and there's too many options. I can go in any direction. I need at least a road.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, same way for sure. I think that it kind of helps a person to, know the ending that they want to get to and figure out. I think having things, I think that makes things a little more satisfying for the readers when you do have the vision and you just have to sort of get it, find a way to achieve it. So just
Yeah.
kind of do it on the fly.
Oh, absolutely. So, which authors or books have had the most like significant impact on your style or influences on your story?
Well, it kind of varies. The epic fantasy novel that I still haven't finished. I have 98,000 words sitting in a Word document, but hopefully that will see the light of day someday. But that was George R.R. Martin's Song of Ice and Fire. For sure, that was the biggest one. For Sam Adams, it was Jim Butcher, The Dresden Files. And with Sam's narrative voice, there's a couple. There was this one guy that I don't know that a lot of your viewers will even know. His name is Robert Young Pelton, and he wrote these things called the world's most dangerous places, and he's talking about these like horribly brutal conflicts and warfare, all of this, and it's hilarious. He's really, really funny, and he just has this sort of dry humored way of pulling all these ridiculous things. And I think when I read that when I was probably a teenager or something, I really liked that, and I kind of thought, oh yeah, I want to sound kind of like that. And so there's a lot of that in Sam's narrative voice in particular. And then I wrote a couple of horror novels that are in the Trump novel stage. And for that, it was Kevin Williamson who wrote Scream, and like R.L. Stine as well, big Goosebumps fan. And so it kind of varies from book to book what I'm going for. Just depends on what I want to achieve and what.
It sounds like you're widely read in a variety of situations. The one that you're
not really.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of whatever kind of just captures my interest is what I read. It's not that wide, but just whatever I'm kind of in the mood for.
I'll try not to throw those accolades at your feet. Then my bad.
Not that scholarly. It's not that academic about it quite.
So Robert Young Pelton, that was the one that did the most dangerous places around the world, and it was kind of like tongue in cheek, right? Okay, just make sure I got that one right. So
and there were plenty of others. Yeah.
Sorry, I think we're dealing with a little bit of a delay here. I'm trying not to interrupt you.
A little bit of a delay. It's not terrible. No, it's okay. But there were other stuff as well. I don't want to just go totally off on a tangent here, but
that'd be fine.
Shane Black, he wrote the Lethal Weapon franchise. That was an influence as well. And just a lot of things, actually, come to think of it, were movies, TV shows that were influenced on Sam in particular, like Veronica Mars, to an extent, Buffy the Vampire Slayer for sure. She was kind of one of the biggies as well. And John Wick, Indiana Jones, Die Hard, things like that all kind of found their way into it, and a lot more besides.
That's a lot of really good pulls. Man, those are really cool.
Nice.
So do you pull in a lot of that like tongue-in-cheek kind of like action humor into your Sam Adams series? Is that kind of the style we can expect?
Sure. That's kind of exactly, yeah. That's kind of the stock in trade of the Sam Adams series there.
Oh, that's wonderful stuff, man. So looking ahead, what excites you most about the next stage of your author journey? Is it just coming out with more Sam Adams books? Is it working on this epic fantasy? What are you most looking forward to?
Well, it's kind of both. I'm looking forward to finally getting that epic fantasy done, or at least the first book of it, and kind of getting that off of my back after it's been on my mind for almost a decade now. And so I'm finally getting that out there, as well as more Sam Adams book. There's going to be 9 books. I realized sometime after I published Mysterious Ways, I was officially 1/3 of the way through the series, and so now I want to move on to book 4, because that's kind of it's not anything formal, but it's almost going to be kind of an unofficial finale to the early part of the series, like kind of books 4 and also book 5 that's going to kind of go in a different direction and be about something else. That's going to kind of wrap up the early part of the series, and then most of the series or most of the storylines from we talked about so far will wrap up, and then there's going to kind of be some new stuff from like book, 5 or 6 onwards to the end of the series.
Nice. I love it when a series can pivot into a new direction, and it's hard to do, but if you pull it off, it's very satisfying. Sure. So I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you.
Of course. So my final question, actually I have 2 more questions, sorry. My second to last final question is, if you could recommend any book to any person, what would that book be? One book.
Oh man, one book, any book,
one book
to any person. I'm going to look at my shelves. I have to look at my shelves because like I can't, I can't. You asked, I have no idea. I don't know where I would start. I try to think of some, and I hope you can hear me because I'm all turned around here.
I can hear you.
Okay. Any book to any person. Okay. Well, I think about some of my favorite books, but I don't know that it would be any person so I'm just going to go purely off the top of my head. I'm going to say it's a nonfiction book called Robert the Bruce by, I think his name is Ronald McNair Scott. And it's because it's a biography of Robert the Bruce. It's nonfiction. And I think nonfiction seems like a good thing to go with because, it's not, a little more informative, not so much depending on taste, whether it's like thrillers or fantasy or whatever. And he writes it like just a big swashbuckling medieval movie like Ridley Scott would make or something. But it's all true. So, and it's not super long either. So I think if somebody was looking for kind of a literary good time and I had to think of something, I think that would be a pretty safe bet.
That's a good choice. And so my final question for the evening, as we are running out of time on this episode, what advice would you share with aspiring authors who are beginning their own writing journey?
Okay, I would say first you have to write, keep at it. You have to write consistently, carve out some time to do it, do what I did and use like the time you would have killed on the anyway. And just keep after it. Don't abandon it when you get stuck or frustrated. But just get into the habit of it, stay after it, don't stop. And when you get it done, set it aside for a while, come back to it. Don't just like drop the first thing you write on Amazon, go rewrite it and then rewrite it some more and polish it and make sure it's good. And then make sure and get yourself a legit editor and a legit cover artist. Avoid kind of the literate, and then avoid some of those ne'er-do-wells of the literary world. And don't try to do it yourself either because you're probably not qualified to do that. Find people who know what they're doing. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
I love that, man. Daniel, could you please tell the people where can they find you on the internet and where can they find your books?
My books are available from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble are the physical copies. Ebooks are from several other venues. I think they're on Apple Books. I think I kind of forget because I just sort of put the thing on a draft to digital and it just sends them out to all these places. But it is available. They are on wide release. So Amazon, probably the most convenient way, but Barnes & Noble, other stuff as well. And I'm on Blue Sky, dmeyer.bsky.social, I think is how you, add D Meyer author on Blue Sky. And my official website, which no one visits, there are tumbleweeds blowing through there. But if you want to check it out, danielmeyerauthor.com is my official website. I even have a newsletter that I even send from time to time. So that's where I am.
Excellent. And yeah, we'll have all that linked down below. So it's very easy to find people. Just scroll a little bit. Go check out clear out the tumbleweeds on that website. But Daniel, thank you for coming on to the show this evening.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And folks, until next time, let's be author adjacent together. See ya.